welcome to week 2 of the Bloomerang Start to Finish project. I am Misty Doan and I'm here with Liz.
Hi.
You know her as the voice behind the camera. We've brought her in front of the camera for you
Right.
for this great project.
Usually asking your questions from behind the camera.
That's exactly right. And so if you're just joining us, this is week 2 of our sew along for National Quilting Month called Bloomerang. And so if you missed week 1, be sure to go back and catch that. This week we're going to be tackling these curves in our Drunkard's Path block.
That's right.
Super fun. And so if you have it handy, we do have the small Drunkard's Path template. And what that means, I know this doesn't look like a small template. The circle itself is smaller than on our large, which is a much bigger circle. So that's the difference between the two if you're wondering. You want the small for this project. If you don't have the template, there is a free printable.
That's right. There's a diagram in there that you can trace and cut. We recommend probably onto like a cardstock or a cardboard to make it easier.
Yeah, and I think if you don't have the template, I recommend tracing it and cutting with scissors just to be safe. But it is available for you if you need it. And so let's talk about what we need to make these curved blocks.
Right. So we're going to start by choosing whatever fabric we want to be in all 8 total blocks. So one block, actually, if you can reach that one, this is the block we're trying to make. And then we're going to pair
just like that.
Pair them together. So we're going to make 8 blocks. And that will take care of all 4 of our curved sections. So we really just need fabric, the template, and then, as Missy said, scissors to cut and trace if you're using that method. We're going to use the acrylic, so we're going to go ahead and use the rotary cutter along the side. And then pins.
Yes.
So I know Jenny often says, like, I'm not a pinner, but I'm friends with people who are. Well, sometimes people are. And one of the things, too, about this is if curved piecing is something that you'd like to dive into more of, we actually also have a class here at Missouri Star called Curved Piecing with Confidence. And in that, Sherry shows us how to do all kinds of curved piecing with lots and lots of pins.
Yes.
So if that's your jam or how your brain works, you can definitely check out that class for more information.
Absolutely. So let's just dive in. So you're going to need, I believe it is 8 5-inch print squares.
Right.
And that's going to make the inside part of your curve, what you see here. And then you're going to need
just 4.
Just 4 of the background 5-inch squares, and we're going to use that to cut the outer piece. So let's go ahead and start with cutting.
Yep.
We'll dive into that. And so we're going to use this actual inside part for our print fabric. So let's just lay this. We want to make sure the corners match up to the fabric. And then it is really easy to just keep your hand out of the way and let the rotary cutter do the work for you. Oops. Make sure you get all the way through. There we go.
Beautiful.
And so that is our inner curve. And so now if you were doing a scrappy project, you could save this and you could get your outer curve, but we want to make sure we have that contrast. So we're going to use our background fabric for the outer curve. And we're going to use this 4.5-inch measurement that's on the ruler and line that up on our background square. Just make sure everything lines up nicely. And then we can cut it out. Just take your time when you're working with curves. There we go, and that's our first cut, and we can actually turn this.
And this is why you only need 4 pieces of your background.
Exactly.
To get this.
We just want to make sure it's all lined up, and then we can cut.
And you get a cute little orange peel in the middle.
Yeah, it leaves you this little orange peel shape, and now our background pieces are ready to go.
Perfect.
So, Liz, how do you dive into this? Because I usually press mine in half to find a center mark. So you can just fold it in half and finger press or take it to the iron. So there's a center line on that.
And before you take it to the iron, while you're pressing that one, I just want to show you these don't line up.
They don't look like it.
And that's okay because that's intentional. What will happen is we're going to flip this over and stretch it just a little bit, and it will end up a 4.5-inch square.
Exactly.
So don't panic. This is how it's supposed to look.
This is exactly how it's supposed to look. Because of the seam allowance and the curves, it looks a little tricky to our brain, but like Liz said, when we get it all pinned and in place and taken to the machine, it will work out.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy is right. So I'm just going to fold this in half as well. And find that center mark. There we go. And Liz, I'll let you
All right.
take it from here.
So I'm going to pin at least 3 times. So you can pin more than that. You can pin just once. You can totally wing it. Winging it doesn't work for me. So the way it works for my brain is to pin. I've lined up here the 2 folds that Misty made for me in the center. So I can keep those together. And I'm just going to put a pin in here right along that fold. And then I'm going to kind of twist and pinch these and line up the square edge. And it doesn't matter what kind of pins you're using, just whatever works for you. You don't need a specialty or anything like that. So again, I'm just going to kind of pin this. Now, because it's a small piece, and I'm going to start there, I just want to hold it there for the minute. Down here, I'll be a little more careful with my pin. 1 more pin.
So you do 3 pins at least.
So I do 3 pins at least.
Okay.
And you can fold even more. And so in the class that we have, Sherry talks about more options to pin in more places. Mm-hmm. And again, just kind of what works for your brain. So here at the end, I'm actually going to pin in this direction. As I sew, I'll be able to pull that pin out.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're going to go to the machine. And we have our really great 1/4" seam tape, but I'm actually going to ignore that for this because the curve is going to kind of follow a little closer to the needle than it is out here.
That's a really good tip
So
because
that will throw me off.
it can throw off your brain if you're used to following that line with your straight seams. Because we're dealing with a curve, like Liz says, that all happens much closer to the needle, and you need to make sure that you're pivoting underneath the foot as opposed to keeping it straight back there with the tape.
And there's another good tip. So you might have a stiletto or an awl. I actually am going to just use the pin to do that. And that's so that I can get this up close to here without putting my fingers anywhere near the needle. Because I don't really feel like sewing my finger to my project.
No, we do not want to do that.
But I am going to use this as the 1/4". And then we will go off. Now, this is not a time for me particularly to be speedy. So I'm going to go nice and slow. And I'm just going to follow that curve. You can see right here. I'm just going to follow this curve. And this is going to pleat a little bit along the outside edge. And I'm just going to use my fingers to hold that and guide that. And let the pleat stay out of the way. And just nice and slow. And you can see that the edges are lining up. And I'm just going to ignore the pleats out there as long as they're not going under the needle. So I've come up against this pin. Now I'm going to start using this pin instead.
Yeah, I like using these kind of heavier pins because, like you said, they work in place of a stiletto. They can actually help you maneuver that fabric where you need it to go.
Yep, so I'm going to use it to kind of poke that fabric where I need it to go. As you can see, I'm not paying attention to this 1/4". I'm paying attention right up here. All right, and then as promised, I'm going to pull this pin out. And you saw it stretch a little. I'm just going to kind of guide it with my fingers. And we always say finished is better than perfect. It is not going to be super perfect, but it's going to be hidden inside that seam, and nobody's going to pull this open to make sure that my 1/4" is perfect.
That's exactly right. And I remember when we did this Drunkard's Path block for our triple play, I was really nervous. I hadn't had a lot of experience with curved piecing prior to that, but it is really forgiving. It truly is. If you take your time and just, do the best that you can, it's pretty forgiving. And look how great that looks. And so you can see this is just going to roll back. Let's go ahead and take this over to the ironing board. Give this a nice press. It looks great.
Awesome. So you're going to do that seven more times.
That's right. Exactly.
So then when you have a total of 8, you're going to pair them up. And then they go together just like...
They make a half circle, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
So just like any other blocks.
So then do you want to sew those two together?
Sure.
All right, because we're kind of making little units with these, right?
Yes. So the only piece I am going to try to match up here is at the end. But I'm going to leave that to the end. I'm going to start here because there's just too much fabric in my sewing machine is likely going to try to tear that down into the machine.
That's a good tip.
Okay, so now I will use that 1/4" seam tape because it is my friend. I'm just going to make sure those are nice and lined up.
I do feel like these blocks, when you finish them, they're so gratifying, because at least for me, it was honestly a block that I never thought I would do. I was like, oh, I like, traditional straight piecing. I'm not sure I ever want to try that, but I mean, look how great these look.
And it's such a fun shape to add to everything. It just adds a little more
Exactly.
interest. And it turns into a nice square that you can use with all your other blocks.
Exactly. And so then now, to finish these units, we're going to add a 2" by 4.5" rectangle to either side.
Yep.
And so that'll make these fit nicely in with the rest of our project. Yeah, you can see here these little strips that are just on the outside. That's what she's adding now. And then you'll find these 4 patches that we made last week. And so that's building this outer section of our beautiful Bloomerang project.
It's got a sail down one side.
And one more.
And then one more. And usually I want to put the strips on top, but again, because I don't want to get too much bunch, I'm actually going to flip this over.
That's a good tip as well.
And start in the easier corner.
And I think it's okay to do that when you're dealing with shorter lengths like this.
Sure.
If you were adding borders or something, that's when you want to make sure the strip's on the top.
And I'm getting a little rumply, so I'm just going to lift my foot. Sail down the edge. All right. So that...
Beautiful. Then we can just press that back. That looks so nice. There we go. And so then now we actually complete 4 units just like this. So we have the other 3 ready to go. And we are ready to move on.
Yeah, so next week we will show you how to do the center, which is for us this yellow with the pink and purple flower.
Exactly, this beautiful
and
flower.
And so you pick your fabrics for that. We're also going to need a little bit of heat and bond next week, but we will get started on the next part of this project and get start to finish.
We'll see you next Monday.
We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you are not already part of the Missouri Star Quilt family, you can hit the subscribe button below so you won't miss a thing. And if you click that bell, it'll notify you every time a new tutorial comes out. See you next Friday.